Very good singing. As we stand for prayer, Brother Dave Metz, would you open us in prayer, please? Amen. Before you sit down, turn around and greet everyone. Tell them you're glad you're here today, and then we'll resume. Appreciate you playing today. You did a very nice job. Very good. So you from around the area? You live in Mentor or Painesville? Okay. Go to school anywhere or? All right, we'll go ahead and find our seats. Hope we're a little better acquainted today. Like I said before, it's good to see everyone out today. By way of our announcements, we do want to welcome Zach Miley. Zach will be bringing forth a message today, and we're so thankful that he could be here today, and his lovely wife Bethany, which we've just met. So welcome to you too, and we look forward to what God's laid on your heart. So we look forward to that. Thank you for coming. Today we have potluck. We're going to have a potluck after the service. And if you didn't bring anything or forgot about it, we have plenty of food. So please feel free to stay. You guys are all welcome to stay and join us. We'll just have a time of fellowship and good food, and then we'll call it a day. Don't forget Wednesday night, prayer meeting. We do it online. We have a Zoom account. I send out an email to everyone. It has the prayer request and our prayer sheet on it. It has the account number up on there. You can click on it and be part of our prayer meeting. Brother Bill's been bringing the devotionals each week, and it's been very encouraging, Bill. We thank you for that. We just ask that if anyone else would like to participate, let me know, and I'll be glad to send you the link to get on it. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. If you have a camera on your laptop or your iPhone or however you do it, you can see each other. We can communicate to each other and talk. It's really a neat setup, so I would just encourage you to be part of that. It's good to see Brother Doug Henning here today. He had a mishap and he has a boot on his foot. And we weren't sure if he'd be here because he has to arrest it, but we're glad you're here today, Doug. Good to have you. Ron and Janine, you had an anniversary last week. You told me last week was 39 years. Wow, very good. Hope you had a good day. I don't like to embarrass people on their birthdays, but there's one that we can embarrass today because it is her birthday today. My future daughter-in-law, Samantha, happy birthday to you. I'd make you stand, would sing to you and everything, but we won't do that. So this is bad enough. So, but happy birthday to you, dear. So, any other announcements that I forgot? Anything we need to mention? The Days of Praise books are back there. The daily devotionals. If you'd like one, please help yourself to it, Karen. Oh yeah, all the books on the back table there. We place out there these books that we've accumulated. There's some good reading there. They are free. There's no charge for them. If you would like to avail yourself to them, please take them home. If you have someone you'd like to give them to as a testimony or as a witness, take it and share it with them. But anything on the back table there's no charge for those, so please take advantage of that. Anything else? Okay, at this time we'll ask the gentleman to come forward. We'll have our morning offering. Bill, would you offer the blessing on the offering, please? Very good. Thank you for that. We'll go ahead and turn to hymn number 520, Redeemed. We'll just sing 1 and 3 on this one, verses 1 and 3. We'll go ahead and stand as we sing. We're going to forego scripture reading. We're going to just go ahead and while we're standing, we'll just sing our last hymnal, number 464, if you turn to that page. And then we'll ask Brother Miley to come forth and bring forth his message. We'll just sing 1 and 4, How Firm a Foundation, on the last verse, and the children can be dismissed for Junior's Church. 1 and 4, How Firm a Foundation. Firm on foundation, ye saints of the Lord, is laid for your faith in his excellent. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, it's a privilege to introduce Zach Miley. I'll have Zach give a little bit of a history or background on him. He's from Grace Church of Minner. He's been a real help to us up here in Kirtland. Appreciate your willingness to come up and help with Bill and Dave on the grounds and all that you do. And I look forward to hearing the message today. Just turn yourself on green and you'll be ready to go.
All right, can everybody hear me? All right, so my name is Zach. So I grew up in Pennsylvania, on the other side, Philadelphia area, just north of Philly. And I went to college out in Wisconsin, where I met my wife, and then we moved here. So I've been a little bit everywhere. So I've only been to Ohio for a little over 4 years, maybe about 5 years now. So I'm still pretty new to the area. We live in Mentor, Willoughby, technically. It's interesting. The guy who played the piano, we actually bought their house. So we lived in their old house. So that's just a small world. So if you want to open up your Bibles, we're going to go to Luke chapter 16. So I just graduated from seminary with my master's degree, and I graduated from a Baptist university. So this will probably go a while for the message. I was told 40 minutes for the time frame, so we'll probably fill that whole thing up. We'll see if we go a little bit short. So Luke chapter 16. I'll start with prayer, and then we can get into the passage. Dear Lord, just thank you so much for today. I thank you so much for the beautiful weather outside. It's been raining so much lately, and it's really nice to see some beautiful sun and get some nice warm weather out. I thank you just for the opportunity that we have today to get to church, to be here to worship you, to fellowship with other believers that we may not know, but we know that we serve the same God, and it's just awesome to be in a different church, in a different environment, but serving the same Lord. It's really encouragement to be able to fellowship with other believers, and I pray that we would be able to encourage each other today to just honor and glorify you, and that your word would speak to us, and that we would gain the application that you have through this passage, and that you would give me the words to speak, and you would allow your Holy Spirit to just work in everyone's lives and everyone's hearts as we study your word. Amen. So I'm going to read the passage first, and then we'll kind of get into an introduction. So if you want to go to Luke chapter 16, we're going to read a few down to verse 13. So we'll start in verse number 1. He also said to his disciples, "There was a certain rich man who had a steward, and an accusation was brought to him that this man was wasting his goods. So he called to him and said to him, 'What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your stewardship, for you can no longer be a steward.' Then the steward said within himself, 'What shall I do? For my master is taking the stewardship away from me. I cannot dig. I am ashamed to beg. I have resolved what to do, that when I am put out of the stewardship, they may receive me into their houses.' So he called every one of his master's debtors to him, and said to the first, 'How much do you owe my master?' And he said, 100 measures of oil. So he said to him, 'Take your bill, and sit down, and quickly write 50. And he said to another, 'And how much do you owe?' And he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said to him, 'Take your bill, and write 80. So the master commended the unjust steward, because he had dealt shrewdly. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in their generation than the sons of light. And I say to you, make friends for yourselves by unrighteous mammon, that when you fail, they may receive you into an everlasting home. He who is faithful in what is least is faithful also in much, and he who is unjust in what is least is unjust also in much. Therefore, if you have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, who will commit to you the trust of the true righteousness? And if you have, true riches, and if you have not been faithful in what is another man's, who will give to you what is your own? No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be loyal to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon." So this is a pretty familiar passage, I think. It's a parable. The Lord's teaching here. So we have verses 1 through 9, 1 through 8 technically, are the story. And then we have the lessons after that in verses 9 through 13. So the application is going to come from verses 9 through 13, but the story is obviously important. So in this passage, Christ tells a parable, and it ends in a way that we might not necessarily think. When we think of a person being commended, we think of them doing a good job. But when you look at verse 8, it says, "So the master commended the unjust steward," which is a little different. It's a little odd. It's not normal. We wouldn't necessarily expect that. So when we're looking at that, it kind of catches our attention. And that's the point of a parable, right? It's the point. It's to grab your attention and make you think. Because when I'm reading that, when I initially read that, I said, well, if the guy's unjust, why is he being commended? That doesn't make sense. So then we want to figure that out. Why would that be? And then, how, in verses 9 through 13, am I supposed to mirror that? Because that's the whole point of the passage, is to be like this guy. And that's what Christ is going to tell us. But how am I supposed to do that? Because the guy's unjust. Am I supposed to be unjust in my dealings? So it's an interesting passage. It's an interesting passage in that it shows a dichotomy, which is different than some passages. So one author in my reading says that Christ isn't necessarily commending the dishonesty of the steward here. Rather, he's saying that the children of this world, men and women whose ends and aims are bound by the horizon of this world, who only live for this life, how much more painstaking and skillful are they in their working for the perishable things of the world than the children of light are in the noble toiling after the things of the earth to come. The former appear even more in earnest in their search of what things they desire than the latter. So it's a little weird that way he said that. Essentially what he's saying is that the people of this earth who are living for temporal things are working harder for things that really don't matter than people who are living, or should be living, I guess, for eternal things that really do matter. And he's saying that these people who are working here for things that are going to go away and they're going to vanish because they don't last forever are working way harder than us. And we should be like them. So, how do we get to that point? And what does that mean? What does that look like? So I have just a simple sentence that I kind of want you guys to get. If you guys want to write it down, just try to remember the simple sentence, and then we're just kind of work off of this. The point of the passage, really in just one sentence, is believers should be spiritually shrewd by being eternally focused. Believers should be spiritually shrewd by being eternally focused. So we see here that the steward was commended for his shrewdness. In verse 8 it says, the master commended the unjust steward because he dealt shrewdly. So this shrewdness is what we as believers are supposed to mirror. We're not necessarily supposed to mirror the unjustness that he's doing, but this shrewdness that he's exhibiting is what we as believers are supposed to exhibit. So what does that look like for us? What does that look like? Well, let's get into the passage and find out. So the first point is believers who are spiritually shrewd use their resources for eternal purposes. Let's look at verse number 9. And I say to you, make friends for yourselves by unrighteous mammon, that when you fail, they may receive you into an everlasting home. Essentially what this verse is saying is we are supposed to make friends for eternal purposes. And we're supposed to do that by use of the things that are unrighteous. Meaning, this unrighteous mammon is money, the possessions that we have. Now, they're not intrinsically unrighteous. They're not sinful. It's not wrong to have money. We understand that. But these things within themselves are not holy. So what he's saying is use the possessions that you have, use the things that you've been given, your home, your time, your money, your ability, your relationships, all these different things, and use them to make friends, but don't just make friends for the sake of making friends. Make friends for eternity, because believers who are shrewd are eternally focused. We're thinking about the future. We're thinking about heaven. We're thinking about things that actually matter rather than the here and now. It's very, very easy for us to get focused on here and now because everybody has stuff going on in their lives, right? Everybody deals with health issues, maybe to different, variances. Maybe some people deal more than others, but we all deal with certain things. We know family members that deal with certain things. Everybody deals with financial issues at some point in your life. Everyone deals with time restraints. You have too much to do and you just don't have enough time to do it. Everyone deals with the relationship issues with family, whether they're unsaved, whether they're saved, whether you just have something that you disagree on. There's all these different issues in our life, and it's very, very easy for us to get caught up and focus on them. Now, is it wrong to focus on things of this earth? I would say no. Is it wrong for us to focus on our relationships? No. Is it wrong for us to have a focus on our money, to make sure we're handling it correctly? No. Is it wrong for us to focus on our homes or our properties to make sure they look nice? No. That's not wrong. But in doing so, that should not be our main focus. We, as believers, have an eternal hope. We have an eternal promise, and we have an eternal reward. And that should be what motivates us, not the here and now, not the things that go on in this life. So what they're saying, essentially, is that we, as believers, should be using the things that we have to make friends, to build relationships in the community, so that we have opportunity to teach and preach the gospel to those people, and so they can have a relationship with Christ. And this unjust steward here is doing a very, very good job on making friends, right? Because he sees there's going to be an issue down the road. He just lost his job. He no longer has any money to provide for his family, to pay his bills, to have a house. He doesn't know what he's going to do. He doesn't want to dig because he's not strong enough. He's too proud to go and beg. He doesn't know what to do. So what he does is he goes out in the community and he knows these people and he builds a relationship with them. So that way when he actually gets fired, he has a relationship with them and then they're indebted to him. So because he knows it's coming, he knows what's going to happen down the road, and he wants to be prepared. Same with us. We need to be focused on the future. He wasn't focused on the here and now because he could have said, oh, well, everything's going to work out. It's okay. I'll figure it out. No. He said, you know what? I need to make decisions. I need to take the action right now because something's going to happen in the future. And if I don't do anything right now, I'm going to be stuck over there when I don't have a job. And I'm not going to have any relationships, and I'm not going to know what to do. So right now, I need to take initiative and do something about it. So what are we doing, though? He was focused on the here and now, right? He was focused on his own health, his own money, his own relationships. We should not be doing that as believers. Now, we should be doing the initiative that he was doing, but we need to be doing it for eternal purposes. Now, how do we do that? How do we do that? Well, we should be using these things that we have in our daily life for opportunity to reach others, right? How can we use our money to reach other people? How can we do that? It could be helping a family member who doesn't know the Lord financially, wisely. Okay, we're not supposed to just give money out. That would be silly. But wisely to do it with an understanding of the Lord has blessed me, I want to bless you. It could be using our property to house people who are coming into town and be a blessing to them. Potentially they're missionaries, okay, that are coming into town and don't have a place to stay. You can be a benefit to them. And if you're not taking care of your house, your house isn't a good place to stay, then you're not going to have that opportunity because you're not taking care of the temporal things. And you do that so you can bless them for eternal purposes. So it's a pretty basic thing, but it's something that I think we all need to work on. It's something that we all need to get better at. So the use of possessions here is broader than money. And I think a lot of times when we look at this passage, we think, okay, well, he's talking about money. Well, it's not just money. It's our time. It's our relationships. It's our property. It's our possessions. It's our money. It's a lot of different things, and we need to be using them for eternal purposes. Okay, point number 2. Believers who are spiritually shrewd are not only using their resources for eternal purposes, but they're also being faithful stewards of the temporal things God has given them so they can be faithful stewards of the eternal things. And we already kind of talked about this, but it's really, really interesting how he talks about this. In verse 10 through 12, he says, he who is faithful in what is least is faithful in what is much. And he who is unjust in what is least is unjust in much. Makes sense? Verse 11, therefore, if you have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, who will commit to you the trust of the true riches? And if you have not been faithful in what is another man's, who will give to you that which is your own? So it's really, really interesting here. And it's very logical, because Scripture is logical, right? Because God is logic, and Christ is teaching here. It's very logical, but I think we struggle with this. Because we just don't put it into practice. And it's like you're talking to a child, okay? If you're faithful in something small, when you have kids, most of you I'm sure have kids when your kids were younger, you don't initially give your child a car, okay? To start with, that's the first thing that they have to take care of. You get them something small, and then they build up, and they learn how to be responsible for that thing. You don't buy a puppy and say, okay, here you go. Very first thing, take care of the puppy, because that puppy's not going to have a good time, because that kid doesn't know what he's doing. They don't have practice. They haven't learned the lessons that they need to learn. That would be silly to do that, right? That makes sense. So, same thing. We need to be faithful in the small things that don't matter before the Lord can give us things that really matter. Likewise, we need to be faithful in the things that are temporal, the things, money and my time and my possessions and my relationships. I need to be faithful in those things if I ever hope to be faithful in things that actually matter. Eternal things, my relationship with God, my relationship with others for the sake of the gospel, my understanding of the gospel, my ability to preach. I can't do those things if I'm not being faithful in short things. I also can't do those things because I'm not going to have opportunity to do them if I'm not taking care of the temporal things. All right, so if I work at a place and I'm saving money, and I put that money into the bank, that makes sense from a financial standpoint. We would understand that. The secular people would understand that. Now, a lot of people would just go out and they would spend that money. And they live essentially paycheck to paycheck. Not because they have to, because they make poor decisions. Now, we know that that's not financially a wise decision. That makes sense. Now, is it wrong to do that? Maybe. I don't know that it's necessarily sinful, okay? But if I'm doing that, am I losing opportunity to minister to other people? I think I would be. One, I'm not going to have money, okay, so I'm not going to be able to support my family in the way that I should, okay? If someone in my extended family needs some assistance, even if they're saved, my mom, my dad, my grandparents, whoever it may be, I'm not going to be able to help them because I don't have any money, because I'm not being a smart decision maker. I'm not being a good steward of what the Lord has provided me temporally, so I'm not going to be able to bless anybody. If I'm not taking care of myself, I may not be able to save up and buy a house. My wife and I are able to use our home to house missionaries. That's something that we like to do. We're currently building a bathroom in our house so that we have the opportunity to house more people than we currently do, because we don't like sharing our bathroom with people. So we want to build one so that way they can have their own bathroom, and we want to be able to have people in our house without feeling like we're crammed in a bathroom. We can do that because we're being smart with our money and because we've saved up. And we're doing that not just because, we want to have a bathroom because it makes it, it's nice. I mean, it is comfortable. But we want to be able to have people at our house, and we want to be able to minister to people. I can't do that if I'm not being smart with my money. Does that make sense? These temporal things, yes, we need to have this eternal focus. I need to be focused on the things that actually matter, eternity. Money in the long run, it doesn't matter. If I work hard and I just don't make a lot of money, it doesn't mean that I'm not important. It doesn't mean that the Lord isn't blessing me. The amount of money that I have isn't important in the long run, okay? We understand that. That's not what I'm saying, okay? Obviously, we can be blessed, we can honor God with a little bit. We don't have to be rich from a human standpoint. But if I'm not being smart with the things that the Lord has provided me, whether they're much or whether they're little, then I'm not honoring Him, and I'm not going to have the opportunity to bless other people. And this is that shrewdness that he's talking about here. This manager, this unjust manager, he was focused on what's going to happen down the road. He wasn't focused on right now. He was making decisions that would impact him down the road. Same with us. I can't just be focused on, I have bills to pay. I'm just going to go, I want that new car. I want that boat. I want to go on that vacation. I might be able to do that financially, but then down the road, I'm not going to have the money to be able to bless someone down the road. I'm not going to have the money to be able to tithe to my church to be able to support a new missionary because I don't have the money. I might not have the house to be able to house people. Do we see how that works? And the Lord's saying, you need to be eternally focused. You need to be thinking about the future, but you need to be taking care of what I provided you right now, because you're not going to have opportunity if you don't to bless other people and then to preach the word and to be a testimony. So that's point number 2. We see that that believers who are spiritually shrewd, Believers who are doing what the Lord wants us to do because he commended him. The Lord wants us to be like that unjust steward, just not to be unjust, but he wants us to be shrewd. What does that look like? It looks like being focused on eternity, not just being focused on right now, thinking about, well, how does this impact eternity? What decisions am I making? How are they going to impact God? How are they going to impact my testimony? How are they going to impact my influence in the community? And then I need to be a steward, a faithful steward of the small things that I have. Because yes, they might not matter eternally, but they do matter because the Lord's given them to me, and he calls us, each one of us, multiple times. The scriptures talk, I don't know how many times, 1,400 times, I think, about money in the Bible. I mean, it's all through Scripture. And so much the Lord's saying, do this, do this, do this. Be a good steward. Take care of it. I've given it to you. Do a good job with it. Make wise decisions. Use it in this way. Well, if I'm not taking care of the things he's given me, I can't do that. So that's point number 2. And then point number 3, not only are faithful stewards eternally focused, and then not only faithful stewards are stewards of the temporal things, because I can't do that if before I have to be a steward of the temporal things before I'm a steward of real important things like people's souls with a discipleship relationship. Number 3, believers who are spiritually shrewd are committed to God alone. And this is probably the most important, because I think we can kind of do these other things. There's a lot of things that we can do as a Christian, right, that we kind of do from a exterior showmanship kind of a thing. We do them because we know we should. We do them because we know they're right. But our motive, it's kind of flip-floppy sometimes. I know I struggle with this. I know I should do things, and I do them because I know people are looking at me, or they expect me to do them, or I know I should do them, and I know God wants me to do them, so I'm going to do them. But I kind of do them begrudgingly. I don't do them with the best attitude. My motives aren't fully into it. Believers who are spiritually shrewd are committed to God alone. Look at verse number 3. No servant can serve 2 masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be loyal to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. So this is interesting, because we see how important money, and mammon speaks of money here, but I'm going to broaden it. Our money, our time, our possessions, our relationships, all those different things. We see how important they are. And how easy is it for us to sometimes get too focused on them, where we're now serving them rather than serving God? Is it a wise decision? Is it a right decision? And is it a God-honoring decision and obedience to him to handle my money well? It is. But can I get so focused on my investments and my savings account and my Roth IRA and my input into my 401k that I'm losing focus on God? I think we all know we can do that. Is it a good thing to have a nice, clean house so you can house people, so you can have people over for Bible studies, so you can have your unsaved family come and stay, you can minister to them? Is that a good thing? That's a good thing. But can we get so consumed with how our house looks that we're putting things in that don't necessarily need, that we're spending so much time cleaning and renovating and making it look pretty and doing all these things that we lose focus on why we actually have those things at all? I think it's really, really easy to get distracted. It's really easy to get distracted because there's a lot of things that are important in our life. As human beings, we have responsibilities. We have jobs, we have families, we have things that we have to do. And we have to do them, and the Lord wants us to do them well. But if we get distracted by them to the point that I'm no longer focused on God first and foremost, then what's the point? Then I'm doing the right thing for the wrong reason. My motives are not what they should be. And therefore, am I really doing the right thing? I would argue that you're not. Because if I'm not honoring the Lord with not only my actions, but my motives behind those actions, then that's not really honoring God. This is really, really interesting because it says no servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one or he will love the other. There's not like a gray area here. It's very black and white. It's very different, right? Hate and love are not like kind of close. They're on complete opposite spectrums. Either I'm going to hate God or I'm going to love God. It's not either I'm going to love God or I'm going to like God or I'm going to not like God or I'm going to hate God. We don't have those two middle options. If I'm not fully committed to God, if I'm even a little bit distracted and focused on something else instead of God, am I loving God according to this passage? I'm hating God according to this passage. If we go on, it says, or he will be loyal to the one and he will despise the other. Once again, there's only two sides. There's no middle ground. Either I'm 100% committed or I'm 100% not committed. When I get distracted and I'm not focused on God anymore, then I'm not focused on God at all, according to this passage. And as Christians, we need to be 100% committed to God. And that's something that every single person in this room deals with on a daily basis. Because there's things in your life each and every day that creep up and can tempt us to get distracted. It could be health issues. It could be financial issues. It could be family issues. It could be serious concerns. It could be little tiny concerns that really aren't that concerning, but they distract you. And it's a big deal. And we don't think of it that bad, right? I don't think of it that bad. Okay, well, I got a little distracted. That's okay. I'll just come back. I mean, yes, the Lord's merciful, and he's going to accept me back in. But it's not just I just got a little bit distracted. I hated him. I despised him. I was loyal to something completely opposite than him. I was focused on something completely opposite than the Lord. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And when I do that, when I'm thinking about something else, I can't do these other two things that we've talked about. I'm not being eternally focused. And I'm not being a good steward for the sake of honoring God. I'm not doing that. And I think this is a really apt passage because it speaks to every single instance in our life. Every single decision that I make needs to be in the purview of how does this affect my relationship with God and how does this further my testimony in the community? Because that's ultimately what our goal is in life, right? My goal is not to be a good person for the sake of being a good person. My goal is not to make good friends for the sake of having a lot of friends. My goal is not to have a good job. My goal is not to have a nice house. My goal is not to have great kids. That's not my goal. My goal is to honor God. That's it. That's it. Now, hopefully, as we're doing that, all these other things will come into play. Okay? The Lord will direct. He'll give us opportunity to have friends. He will bless us when we serve him, and potentially that means, not always, but potentially that means we'll have a good job, and we'll have good finances, and we'll live in a nice house, and we'll have a great family. But that comes because I'm being focused on God. So ultimately, what do we get through this passage? What do we see in this passage? I wrote something else here, and I think this is really, really interesting. Imminency is also seen here. The worker in this passage was able to be shrewd because he was fully committed and fully focused on the task. He knew that if he did not figure out a solution, he would suffer because of it. How many of us put off being committed to God? Are we putting everything we can into doing his will and serving him? Are we focusing our efforts on the salvation of others around us and building relationships through the gospel? Are my actions throughout the day focused on God? And am I doing it right now? Or am I saying, I'll figure it out tomorrow. I can do it next week. This guy, he knew, if I don't get my act together right now, I'm going to suffer. But for us, tomorrow, I think we get to a point where, well, tomorrow's going to come whether I honor God or not, right? I've been alive for this long. There's been a lot of days where I've messed up, and you know what? The next days always come. And God's still faithful. He's still going to forgive me. So we kind of lose that urgency. We kind of lose that drive. Because we don't have a correct relationship with God, and we don't have a correct understanding of who God is and how I relate to who God is. This guy had an urgency. He knew, man, I need to get my act together or else I'm going to suffer. We as Christians need to have that exact same urgency. Man, I need to do this now. Because opportunity to share the gospel and to build relationships and for souls to be saved could be dependent on me getting my act together right now. How much more important are eternal souls in the community and in our family and in our friends that we have than, I'm going to lose money and I'm not going to have a job? I would say that most of us would agree that the eternal souls are more important than, I'm going to lose a job. I think we would all agree with that from just a human standpoint. But do we act like that? Do we actually do that? If you guys were to lose your job, or if you're retired, you're going to lose something else. Let's say something happens to the stock market. You hear that the stock market's going to crash and you're going to lose all your investments and your retirement fund's going to go. And you hear about that and you have the insider scoop, and the next day, or you're going to lose your job in a week. And the next day, you go, what am I going to do? I need to act. I need to figure this out. I need to do something. This is going to affect something. And you start working on it right now. I'll figure it out in a week. You don't do that. You don't do that. That wouldn't make any sense. So why do we do that with the Christian life? Because how much important is my neighbor's soul than my retirement fund? Or how much more important is my uncle who doesn't know the Lord, his eternal hope and security, than my job? But I put so much more effort into these things that don't matter than I do with them. Why is that? Because who am I focused on? And who am I not focused on? So how do we solve this? Well, pretty simple. I need to focus on God instead of focus on me. All right, sermon done. Right? Because how simple is that? That's the magic key. I just need to focus on God. I need to be committed to Him. Well, we know that takes a lot more work than just saying that, right? Okay. I need to every single day be committed and make purposeful decisions. I need to be getting into the Word. I need to be praying. I need to have a good relationship. I need to be talking about different things. I need to be working toward that. Okay? There's a lot of things that go into that. It takes work, and that's why we don't do it, because it's hard. That's why we fail at it, because it's hard. But we need to be doing that. And hopefully, my prayer is that this passage, the understanding of this passage, will motivate us to do that. Because I think all of us want to do that. I would hope all of you want to do that. But I think we just get distracted. And then, we put it off. And we just don't do the things that we know we should. Because, we have tomorrow. What if you don't have tomorrow? What if today's the last day that the Lord gives you, and today you could share the gospel with someone? Today you could reach out to that family member that you have an issue with, and you could reconcile it for the sake of the gospel. Today's the day. Don't put it off. And in doing so, make sure that we're taking care of the things that the Lord has given us now, because then we're going to have opportunity to reach people. That's ultimately the point of this passage. Take care of the things you have now and be focused on eternity, so that way when the opportunity comes, you're prepared. Because the Lord's going to provide opportunities for you, but you want to be prepared. All right. So I hope that was an encouragement. I hope it was a challenge. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, obviously. It's something that we need to work on. If you have a family member who's saved, a spouse, a brother, sister, parent, whatever, child, reach out to them. Be honest. Have a good conversation. Talk about it. Figure it out. The Lord doesn't call us. The church isn't meant to walk by themselves. We have one another in here so we can encourage each other, right? Do we take advantage of that? A lot of times we don't. Why? Maybe we're too prideful. Maybe we don't have enough time. Maybe we don't know what to say. Maybe we don't have a good enough relationship with them and it feels awkward. Well, that's on you. It's your responsibility. So, and you all go to the church. You all serve the same God. You all love the Lord. So what's the excuse for us not to do that? So I would encourage you to build relationships with one another. Encourage each other. Ask you how you're doing. What relationships do you have in the community that I can encourage you about, that I can pray for you about? What opportunities can we have to have people over to our house to encourage them? How can I reach out to my neighbors? How can I reach out to my family members that don't know the Lord? I can't come up with anything. Can you help me? Can you give me some examples? Oh, thank you so much for that. This is how we work as a community. So I pray that this was an encouragement to you, and I pray that all of you, this is not an individual thing, I pray that all of you, all of us as believers, would really take this to heart and we would work together as a community, as a church, as a family, okay? And that the Lord would be able to do a great work through all of us, working together. All right, let's pray. Dear Lord, we just thank you so much for today. I thank you for the opportunity to look at your word today. I know the challenge that we saw today is something so simple, but it's also very, very important and very difficult to do on a daily basis. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of encouragement. It takes a lot of patience on your behalf, and it takes a lot of prayer on our behalf to have your Spirit working in us. So I know I need to work on this a lot. I know there's a lot of things that I need to fix in my life, a lot of priorities that I need to get straight. And I pray that you just give my wife wisdom as she helps me through this, my pastors wisdom as they direct me, your word as I get into it and read it more and more, and your Spirit as he works within me to give me power and give me strength. And I pray that each one of these people in this room would have the same thing, that they would have the same opportunities, the same goals, and that you would do a mighty work. In your name, amen. All right, so we are going to, I think, close with a song. Simon, do you want to, can we do 464 instead? Can we do that one? I don't know. I need a book. Thank you, buddy. I'm going to turn this off so you guys don't have to listen to it.